Some 40 years ago, my wife Pat and I bought this houseboat moored on the Thames in West London. The Leonard Piper was a sailing barge, a historic vessel built at East Greenwich in 1910. And this movie tells some of the stories of our life here on, with and around the Leonard Piper. "4,000 sailing barges worked around the coast of the UK in the 19th and 20th centuries. Hydrogen, still sailing from Malden in Essex, is almost identical to the Leonard Piper. Here they are in 1945, moored together in Kingston Dock, Glasgow, being re-rigged after wartime service in the Clyde. In the 1960s, the Leonard Piper was retired from work. She became a houseboat in West London, beginning a new life as a container for my story and our stories, partners, children, colleagues, and our working lives. Yesterday the place was a kind of, the whole of the side of this was like a kind of Kew Gardens, under development, yes?
Yeah, sometimes it was actually sort of hard to tell my dad apart from the boat. He was so invested in fixing it and making it work, and I felt like I wanted to record some of this life that was my dad on the Leonard Piper. What was it that drew you to the boat in the first place?
Oh well, I don't know. We were propelled towards it, I think, both ways. Yeah, because as you may remember, we were living in the cutting room up in Camden Town, having happily sold the place, or got rid of the place very profitably up in town. We had to get out in 28 days from meeting the people. And so we had this money in the bank, and we were looking for somewhere to go because you were going to have to go to school in September, and so there was a certain.
And Denis was directing some film for some reason or other, and he came to pick me up to go to the location and said, "This looks," and liked it. And I think I said that I thought Margie was wanting to sell or might be wanting to move, and that was how it all happened. He came here because of that.
That was the connection, and coming here and walking up and down Chiswick Mall on a really bright sunny summer day and thinking, nobody else knows this is for sale. This has not been advertised. We're the only people that know that this is available, right? And it was that. The quality of the trees were out and the sun was out and this looks like a thing to do. The garden is one of the enduring delights of where Piper is moored. On one side, we're well hidden behind the thick bamboo curtain. And on the other, we're open to the river and the weather. We still have some of Piper's original sailing gear, including the builder's signature. This is the stern deck, a place to sit, to work, or to eat, or simply to be pleased by the River Thames. Nothing remains of the original wheelhouse, but the previous owners built a quite spacious deck house. At well over 200 square metres, the Leonard Piper is a huge living space. Down below, I have a workstation and a home studio, which is where this music comes from. And next door is a 7-metre square therapy room, where for 30 years I've worked with clients. It's also a room where we can entertain my sons, their wives, and our grandchildren. The Leonard Piper is almost 30 metres long, so there's lots more of it. But I'll end this tour with a quick look at Barbara's room. And along with all this space, friendly, practical neighbours. That early on included Phil Brown, who found fame in Star Wars. What else could we want? Come on. But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. I want to move on to growing up on the Leonard Piper, and for that to make sense, I feel I need to list the people who've lived on the Leonard Piper. Let's start with me, writer, therapist, activist, and filmmaker. Ed Booth, son of a previous owner.
And so we bought Leonard Piper. As far as I know, she'd been kind of semi-abandoned. She wasn't rigged. I don't know where they picked her up from, but she arrived 62 up here, I think.
I'm after, but yes, the memories of here, very happy. I mean, like I said, I don't understand how I did it all.
Pat, my first wife, mother of Elmer and Bruno. TV makeup artist and gardener.
Yeah, we were children.
We were children.
We were. I was Marnie's age, or younger.
Wait, look at this.
In fact, Elmer was Marnie's age.
I was Marnie's age.
Elmer was Marnie's age, and I was
Yeah.
5.
Yeah, yeah.
That was 40 years ago.
40 years ago, I know.
We moved on to this boat.
Jill, life and work partner for 9 years. Ian Bramley, nephew and IT implementation manager for the Metropolitan Police. Lastly, partner and wife, Barbara, retired conference interpreter and crochet and stitchery artist.
It was an amazing experience to grow up on the Leonard Piper. I mean, to live on a wooden boat that used to sail the oceans and was designed to work and yet became this home and made of wood was the thing that I completely loved about it.
The few pictures I could find from the time show that there was a lot of making things. Making a room, making things in the workshop, and making planes. And also, with friends from the mooring and across the road, fun in the garden. Some of it very wet fun.
Do you remember the time that Bruno found some money in the river?
I remember that very well.
Tell me what happened.
We just put our wellies on and went for a paddle on as the tide had gone out. It was gone out. And Bruno was walking along next to me, holding one hand. He just goes, a fistful of fivers. 600 quid, I think it was. It's a good one. And then we got them washed in the kitchen and spread them all over the place to dry off. And then a week later, took them to the police station.
And what did Bruno do with the money? He bought a computer. Learning to code on the computer and drawing on the walls launched a lifelong interest in comic art and a career.
We had about 3 or 4 years of living there. It actually felt very solid, very lovely time, a lot of fun with kind of canoeing and kind of building stuff and converting. And then my mum and dad separated. And my dad moved out of the boat and went to live up the high road in Chiswick. And my brother and I stayed on the boat with my mum. So we lived there for 3 years with her. And that became very difficult at the end of that time. And what happened was that Mum and Dad then switched. Mum went to live in Dad's flat and Dad moved back. And Bruno and I were the consistent ones on the boat in that time. We were the ones who stayed there. And our parents moved. And I think that's an important quality of life on Leonard Piper, was that we were the ones who stayed there. So you lived here for 12 years?
Yeah, 12 years, yeah.
And
Probably so did you, probably. Oh, no.
No, I lived here for a bit longer because I lived here till I was 21.
Oh, when you were at college, yeah.
Yeah, I lived here till I was 21 or even 22. But you went off to university at
86. Yeah.
86, yeah. So, yeah. And we're all here together now.
Yeah.
This is granddaughter Nina.
So, what we're talking about is your daddy when he lived on this boat, little girl.
How old do you think Daddy was when he moved onto the boat? 5. That's right. 6. Maybe 6. Yeah.
Maybe 6.
Yeah, I was in Y1 when I moved in, as you call it.
No, that would be.
And
That'd be 6 then, wouldn't
and
it?
he did fall over in the car park and break his tooth.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, you fool.
Yeah,
I know. I was throwing snowballs at him and he slipped over.
It was Uncle Elmer's fault, wasn't it? Yeah, that's what I told them.
Yeah, well, it's true.
Where is it?
Yeah.
This is granddaughter Marnie.
I'm nearly done, actually. I'm nearly done.
This is grandson Lucien.
Oh, I'm in good line for Heathrow now.
That's it, Tabridge.
Yes, done.
You actually shot it taken off. Because this is really good, this bit. You have to have the cutaway now.
Get the screen. Get the screen.
I've got it, guys.
I'm a bit high as well, but it doesn't matter. One way's long and I'm small. Light must change sometime soon. Yeah, there. Nearly proper. Anyway, this will be easiest now if I do it from out here.
Yeah. That's really very good, very good. Float. Very good, yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's good enough. Moving to West London was a great idea. We were very pleased to have found an affordable and appealing niche in Old Chiswick. Old Chiswick, with Fuller's Brewery and St Nicholas Parish Church, is a cluster of streets, houses and mansions, about a mile upstream from Hammersmith. Our mooring sits on its very edge, and I guess it counts as a feature of Old Chiswick. We're tied up to Old Chiswick, but do we belong to it? There's a sweetness and fragrant beauty about it that makes Old Chiswick an attractive place for a walk. But as a northern working class couple, we have neither the income nor the status to belong here socially. The river more than makes up for this disappointment. With the river we feel at home. And every year we have a reminder that in the UK class and privilege are alive and well.
Leader, so at this point, the question is, has Cambridge had the Sunny Station as they come around the big building?
Yeah, they're gonna come to where we are. They're coming! They're coming to where we are.
So they're ready.
Film me! Film me!
Events like this reveal how wild and wet the Thames is. It's a tidal river. The hugely powerful ebb and flow of the tides, as the Thames twists and turns through London, reach inland for 55 miles. Much less visible are the river's inhabitants, such as 125 kinds of fish. When we get further upstream, what used to be water meadows have become bird sanctuaries, housing estates, school playing fields and sports grounds. At Chiswick Reach, where we are moored, the river widens and becomes a lot more accessible. And here, after 40 years of living on and in the river, I've come to understand the Thames as a wilderness. Muddy.
It is muddy.
Do you like mud?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sticky, is it?
Sticky. Lots of seeds find a home here in our wilderness. I've never known the names of these flowers. Like the birds, they know who they are. When given half a chance, they take root in Piper's Hull. As with any flourishing wilderness, insect life is either having a party or collecting stuff for back home. Our 3 boats sit on perhaps the most basic element of this or any other wilderness: mud. Mud that's alive, with flatworms and snails, and caddisfly, midges, dancefly and cranefly larvae. So alive that even crows dig around in it for lunch. Wilderness may be a source of nourishment and other delights, but not all of it has to be accepted. Some of it may be out of place. Can you see where we are? Look, there's your ship, look, there's your boat, can you see? Look, there's your boat. Can you see? And there's my bit. And there's Dan's. As well as our boat, the Chiswick Wilderness has other forms of floating construction. And inhabitants. And just as with the planes a minute apart above us, down here on the water there is competition too. I don't know if geese can feel sad, but when 2 days later all these chicks were missing, I certainly felt sad. And here, I'm told, is a prime suspect. The Chiswick Wilderness tracks the changing seasons, and the plains and the weather are a reminder that it also includes miles of atmosphere. Yes, I know everyone has a sky, but in this wilderness, it's a great pleasure. And every 4 weeks, the driver of the life of this Thames wilderness appears, the moon. In the 40 years that I've been here, there have been about 30,000 tides.
Thank you, kind.
Not all tides are as high as this. But some of them, as in these historic images, can be dramatic and damaging. Tides capture land and sometimes a car or two for an hour and then retreat. And as I was beginning to understand, with the tides, the wilderness was always busy with the task of taking back its own. Through having lived in a tidal situation, so the city breathing, if you like, with the tide breathing and so on, means that the idea of nature has been really present, but also for me present not over there. And lots of people talk about going to nature. Oh, if only I could get out to nature. Well, for me, that's no longer anything like sensible. It's all nature. Living with the Thames wilderness shifted my view of what was up the road in the rest of London. I looked at the streets and the people coming and going in them. This was also a wilderness. A wilderness that, along with driving a cab up and down Marylebone Road, includes people in love, people in red buses going to work, people on the phone, and people driving green lorries. And this urban wilderness, for instance here in Hammersmith, has for me become an equal partner with the Thames wilderness in nature. Oh, that's a mushroom. That's just a proper mushroom, isn't it? That one we could eat, that one. I don't know if I'm going to, but I mean, you could.
In amongst nature.
Well, it's all nature, you see. I mean, that's my... I have a big heretical argument about nature. We have swallows in the house in France, and I have a video of the birds feeding the swallows in France, right? And is that nature? Is the nest nature? Because if the nest is nature, so is that house over there, in my opinion. And so are the jetliners flying over. It's all nature. Frost and rain, plus floating and settling twice a day, have a big impact on the Leonard Piper. So there was a lot of maintenance. Following my tendency to mirror my father's belief that anything can be fixed, I call it dadism. And even in the early days, when a Piper looked fresh and solid, there was always lots that needed fixing. Hours of up and down, in and out of the mud, and getting into a terrible state, cleaning off, hose pipes, washing the side, literally washing the entire length of it with a brush and a hose pipe, standing in 6 or 8 inches or more of mud. That's what's one of the things that, almost more than anything else, has kept this vessel alive for the last of her 103 years. There always seemed to be more to do than there was time to do it. I tend to like improvising, and finding and using new materials was interesting and necessary.
When they're not very fresh, it'll be slow. It'll
But not for the first time.
Following this bit of local fixing in 2004, some years later, a major repair followed. Well, making has always been part of my delight. The pleasure of a nice bit of wood, cutting and shaping and fitting it, in the basic task of keeping the home dry, keeping the rain out. Barbara said, well, not some while after we met, how come you've got this huge space in the stern that's empty and that could be made into an apartment, into a flat, to rent, so as to provide some more steady, continuous basic income. One of the things that I did with some help, but to an enormous extent on my own, was to make a flat, to make to turn what was the master's cabin, in itself a very delightful idea, to turn it into a livable studio flat. It's a studio flat. It's a stern cabin flat. And I made this. I spent probably far too much time repairing, fixing, rebuilding, remaking. And it was, in a way, it was a kind of honour to do repairs on such an extraordinary structure. And perhaps it's a distraction from other things. It was a distraction. It had to be done. Right? There was this imperative, constant imperative.
See it when you lower it in, definitely.
Yeah, so
anyway, it's visible.
So here, what we're going to do now is lower it in. Everything all being well. Put that on there, so it doesn't drop in or something silly.
It's amazing you not smell it.
Coming in, the pump goes in there like so. And everything's at the right angle, yeah. Okay. And then we let this off, but not too quickly. And down it goes into the shit. Oops, hold on a minute, I've got a box that's going right. And this goes down onto there. Well, it sits on this. Oh my goodness, it's really good heavens. It goes into the foam as well.
Okay,
So
yeah.
this is a non-problematic event where it comes out. There we go. And what we're seeing is the endless sequence of debris that people throw in the river, or that gets in the river, and that jams between the boat and the side, so that anything of the right length can get wedged between the side there and this concrete here, yeah? In which case, when the boat moves, it punctures the side. What I found is you wire brush out. It's very, I'll tell you what it is, it's extremely similar to dentistry. This is marine. I've even tried telling my dentist this. He didn't really get it. I don't think he didn't actually get it. But it's extremely similar to dentistry. That's to say, you brush out the rot, yes, till you get to the solid bit. Then you have to get a bond the filling to the hole, right? And then cut it off level. You know, the marine dentistry is what I've been doing for decades down here. So anyway, this is a characteristic position for Denis to have been in many times in recent years and previous years. And that mud is about half a Wellington deep. And if you walk along there, it's sometimes very hard to get the boot out of the mud. But it's as Elmer once said years ago, it's very character forming, Dad. It's character forming. And it is, you know, it's a life. It's a life. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time down here, too much time probably. More time than was sensible.
How do you mean too much time?
Well, it's just that because it was like a fourth bridge, you know, it's like painting the bloody fourth bridge. It doesn't matter how much you do, there's always more to do. And it's never really quite enough. Because this has all been, all of this has all been scraped back to the bare, with hose pipe pressure hose, scraped back to whatever is there at the moment, dried off, burned off with a blowtorch, dry. Because what I found was that if you burn the wet wood dry and then paint it, the paint adheres to the wood. If you try and paint on the wet wood, well, it just falls off. And that's worked very well. That's why these are fine. That's why where it's good, that's why. But it's, you know, twice a day, all that water pressure, there's terrific pressure of the water in, and it gets in anywhere. It's essentially a wooden boat's porous. So, yeah. When Elmer first saw the assembly of this video, he pointed out that it was curious that I had made no mention of the writing, publishing, campaigning, web work and music that I'd produced on the Leonard Piper over the last 4 decades. Correction coming up. I'm going to call it production. Sounds such as this, water leaking into the Leonard Piper hull, shaped a lot of my days and nights. These leaks are insignificant and they are fixable, but year by year there are more of them.
so you know, I get out of bed into. I mean, it was sit on the edge of the bed, and the water was there. Right, so yeah, whatever that is, foot and a half or something like that. And I was up and about, quick as light, but it was absolutely black dark because there's no power on. Of course, well, the reason that we were flooded as much as that is the water shorted the electrics. So I mean, it was black. It was then black dark, and I did actually come round. I got a hold of a torch from somewhere, and I came round underneath, round the other side, and down there it was complete chaos in a fountain of water coming up, and I thought, and also coming through the side as well, and in the bathroom. That was the other thing. I quickly looked in the bathroom, and the vent, which was quite a long way above the water line, next to the loo, was pouring. There was a 3-inch hole, was absolutely like pouring in there. So I thought, ooh, this is you know, survival. And I don't know. I suppose I'm quite resourceful. I mean, I thought, okay, this shit, this is terrible. There are things that need to be done immediately. Tell Claire, yell at Claire. She'd already discovered it, so she was out freaking out. So I heard her freaking out, so I knew she was safe, right? I didn't have to go and do anything. And what did I do? I ran about saving as much that was really critical as I could, particularly the PC and the drives and other things.
I got on the phone, and as you'd expect, I rang everybody and anybody.
So I'll get a call at 5 in the morning from my dad, and he's saying the place is full of water, is what he says. The place is full of water. She's gone. And so I sort of jumped in the car and raced over, my heart in my mouth, and I kind of found the place basically with a metre of water downstairs.
As the day came up, there was a wonderful rush of help from neighbours, family and friends. The RNLI lifeboat also showed up, and the fire service too, but neither had pumps that were up to dealing with this much water.
Everybody was okay. Dad was okay. That's the most important thing, is that Dad was okay. From that, the chaos that unfolded was just gigantic. You know, half of his life got thrown away in one go.
As the metre-deep water drained out, leaving a sodden, wet mess, the disappearing flood raised a big question. Is the boat finished? Is the boat dead? And I looked at where the leak was, and I took the view that it wasn't. She wasn't. I could fix that. And I had the materials to fix it. And everybody else, I think, was completely astonished. Because it's a story that pleases me. Because I got down there and flushed it out with a hose pipe, found the size of the hole you could get your hand through, right, to the outside. I was bringing in bamboo from outside the boat, right? And but then I had the wood, so I got the carpenter to cut me a piece of the hardwood, the right size. It was already the right width, the right length. Got the foam together, cleaned it out, dried it out, foamed it, pushed the wood in, wedged it. Yes, and when the tide came in, she was dry. Unfortunately, very little else was dry. We had wonderful help, but clearing out and drying what could be saved was a dreary burden for several weeks.
Because I was able to repair it, do the repair real fast, it meant that the place was, inside of a month or so, was dry. And once you took the carpets out, it was dry. It's dried out real quick, you know. And then it took 18 months. You see, it's not a year. It was only to March this last year that I actually got the use of the sitting room, really. So it was a year and a half the place was a storeroom. Which was that's been very, very difficult. That's been really kind of, hanging and being patient and being very careful about attention and yeah, it's occupied 18 months.
Survival also meant sleeping for over a year on the floor in the deck house. Hello, B.
Hello, D. You may make a sound if you want.
Whoopee. Whoopee. Or more likely recently. Oh dear.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
And I started to look for replacements for him because I thought, well, the obvious thing is for him to have another boat. And as I was looking for replacements for him, I then ended up coming across a mooring and then followed reasonably quickly by a boat that would go on that mooring. Within about 6 weeks of my dad's boat sinking, we had bought a houseboat.
6 months later, Elmer brought the new boat upriver, past the Leonard Piper.
He's on the roof, he's on the roof.
He's on the roof.
You don't want to start that rerun.
Hi, Grandma. Hello. Hi, Pet.
And alongside this generational renewal, there were still questions to be asked about Piper's future.
I can show you that when we go back up, because we can pull it back. Oh yes, I've succeeded in pushing her out a fair bit actually. She's now a good 12 inches further out than usual, yeah.
During the whole time that the boat was on the mooring, the work that was done on it was done on the sides and on the top. That's what you could do. To take the boat out would have been a major process and an expensive one, and would have put the boat at some risk also.
It looks like a bang sticking out the bottom there, Dennis.
Yeah.
So the idea was that you just leave it where it is, and the wet wood preserves itself. It doesn't dry out. It just stays going. Now that's great, but that has its time.
Whereas higher up, there was yeah.
I mean, Dad's always been a complete enthusiast for repairing the boat, and there's always a capacity in Dad to repair it or fix it or do something with it, and I love that whole quality to him. And you'd never hear him say that the boat would ever be anything other than completely seaworthy, and eventually that became not to be so. That became clear when Rick Cardy came and he put a screwdriver into the soft beams underneath, and he sort of shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, but it's £1 million to repair this boat."
The drama of how this played out is much too much for our story here, but I kept a log of events, and what follows are some extracts and dates from it. 18th of June, meeting with Elmer to discuss Riccardi's survey. June the 27th, a boat breaking contractor shows up. They have bold proposals to break Piper where she is, but we never hear from them again. June 28th, I wake up terrified. Piper's safe where she is, but the months and months of uncertainty are really getting to us. We meet a river-savvy agent, a state agent. Would anyone want to buy the mooring with or without Piper? He gives an unequivocal yes to both, and a price, an attractive price. August 14th, Barbara and I have a detailed discussion of our options. August the 21st, Barbara and I again review the figures and options and the financing. We reach a decision. Sell the mooring, break Piper, we'll rent somewhere in London. November 13th, a contractor, Jim Dines of TS Rigging at Malden, shows up to look at breaking Piper. January the 16th, 2014. We go to see Jim Dines in his yard at Malden. We discover that, among other things, he had re-rigged the Cutty Sark after her fire and rebuild. This will do. January the 21st. Barbara finds a flat in Ealing. We rent it. February the 4th. The agent set an asking price and we put the mooring up for sale. February the 17th. A keen buyer appears. This is great, but more tension follows. February 22nd. One of our mooring neighbours calls, saying he wants to buy the mooring. From another call that day, I hear that my sister Audrey is dying. Too much. I feel overwhelmed. February the 25th, we decide to sell to our neighbour and to leave the mooring with the existing boat community. March 3rd, we sign the contract for the mooring sale. And from then on, while Jim Dines works to get agreement from the Port of London for his plan to move and break Piper, the drama subsides into delay, 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 delay. Piper is going in April, then June, then August, then September, and finally November 2014.
On Saturday, when Ben and Kate, the tenants who've been here for only 6 months, and who were very, very, very sad to go, who took a delight in the place. I saw on Saturday afternoon Kate standing on the end of the deck, looking at the river, and I realised that she was leaving. She was leaving. She was looking at the river for the last time. And you see, that gets to me. Because it's partly that, again, it gets to me because it was her delight in the place. It's shared. This has been the delight that you've had, that we've had, I've had. And so, there you go. That's it. And so we'll go as well. There's been a life here, and what's missing potentially from the picture is who was here and what we did and what they did, what was said, and so much. Yeah, and
So much that will have gone. It's gone. It's going to go. I'm going to go. It's going to go. We are going to go. She is going to go. She is going to go. Images of the life there's been. That can be also important. There are paintings on the walls that Pat did. Really nice paintings. Paintings of plants, grasses. Beautiful. And they're going to have to go too. She's gone. She went a long time ago. Or it seems to me a long time ago. And there's another one through here. She had really enormous influence on how the place appears. Painted it out completely, carpeted it completely. Wonderful, it was wonderful. My piano that was here, that came from Connaught Square, beautiful grand piano sat in this corner. And some years ahead of the Leonard Piper, but as a precursor, as a kind of an indicator of what was to come, the piano had to go. It was the last moments, the last time I played the piano. Woodworm was taking over the piano and it didn't stay in tune. I cut it up with a hammer and chisel and sawed it into pieces small enough to go up the stairs. Yes, lots of life here. Crises and delights and sweetness and all the work with clients, because there's been more than 20 years of working with clients here. So much life that's been heard by this room, and that the bells are tolling for its passing. Now they've stopped. Big sigh. So it's a sad day coming. It's been a sad day. It's been a lot of sad days, moving out gradually, fairly incrementally. Sieving stuff here, taking it to Ealing, sieving another shelf or two, taking it to Ealing. Yeah. The recurring thought as I went backwards and forwards to the car was leaving here today. Leaving here this afternoon, leaving here today.
Yeah, well, it just, to be breaking up this barge doesn't make, it makes sense what you want to do, but it's just a shame, having spent the last 30 years, helping rebuild, Thames barges and East Coast smacks, re-rigging them, sailing them, maintaining them, to be breaking one up just goes against the grain a little bit. Just, it hurts a bit to be able to do it, so we've taken the skipper's cabin out, and that's hopefully going to go into a new build barge, and the anchor will go to one as well, and so at least some of it will go back into another ship and have a bit more life. But I don't know if she is the biggest, but I think she's probably the biggest Thames barge still left. And it'll be a shame when we break it up, but there we go. It's got to be done.
I had a very, very strange feeling yesterday, and I felt very stuck or very gloomy or glum or anxious, because somehow leaving, after 40 years, it's a huge life event. And, when I realised that I've spent a lot of time here saying goodbye to this old boat, what I'd missed was that I've left.
Tug will be coming up in a couple of hours' time to pick the pontoon up and bring it down here, and hopefully we'll have the pontoon here for midday, 1 o'clock, moor it up, and let the tide go out, open the valves and let it sink on tonight's tide. And tomorrow we'll float the barge on top of it. It all goes to plan, and that'll be it.
I feel it's a bit of a shame that there's this piece of working history that and there's nobody here to rescue it. That all the Thames Sailing barges are gone now, a lot of them, and there's one of the few left. And all we can really do is dispose of it and recycle as much as we can. It's a bit of industrial history, and it's gone.
I feel an attachment to the place. I feel that I love the view very much. I find that Dad's not going to be here. I find that difficult. I find that it would be nice if he was going to be here, because I like coming to see him here, and this is probably maybe the last day we'll ever see him here, and I'm used to that, and I have fond memories of here. And I think the one big missing element here is Mum. You know, Mum was so much here, and
Did she like the boat?
She loved the boat. I think she loved it. I think she really loved the boat, and I think it was very difficult for her to leave. But mostly I just completely love it. Mostly I just completely love the place. I think the fact that the boat is an amazing piece of work is a great joy. You know, it's such a fine piece of work, and I'm happy that Dad's had so much time loving it and turning it into the thing that he's wanted to do. And it always makes me laugh when he used to say, where it's good, it's very, very good, and where it's bad, it's terrible. And the thing is, it's almost finished, exactly. And he used to say that, and he particularly even said it when the boat sank. Somebody put their hand through the bottom of the boat, and he still said it. I said to Dad, I don't know if I can bear losing you and the mooring. And consequently, you and he have decided to have a flat in Ealing, which means that we're not losing him so much. We're still losing quite a lot of him, but we're not losing him so much. He's in Ealing, which is close to us. But we are losing the mooring, and me and Bruno are not going to receive the mooring. And there's pain in that for me. It's such an incredible place, and you know, that's the way it is. So I nothing I can do about that. And
Well, the flood gave it the first push over the edge, because that was pretty horrific. Though everybody was wonderful in dealing with it, but it was a big, big, big shock. I still suffer from, even though I wasn't even here when it happened. So that was the first step towards saying goodbye, I think, really. And that was 3 years ago, so we had 3 years of thinking about that. And then, then slowly, him interviewing, what's his name, Cardi, and so slowly but surely it dawned on us that it wasn't possible to keep it. And also, I think Denis had enough of working on it. After all, he's almost 80, which is what we forget, because il fait très jeune, as the French say. And then, having decided to get rid of it, then to have to wait from 1 month to the next to the next to the next for the last 6 months, that's made the goodbye much easier. Now it's just, please, let's let it be over, because then we can look forward again. This is all backward looking now. And while I say that, of course, I love standing here and smelling the Thames and seeing the Thames, and not many birds today. So, yeah, life, such is life.
Yeah, as you see, it's just like the forward down rider box with Locato written on it, was just in there. But no, I don't know where that's going to do. But no, we've been in the tanks last night. I was up in the tanks. Cool. The two ropes that are going to get in your way, they'll be on the road anyway. Yeah, well, hopefully.
So I'm stood on the roof and I see this boat that had been floating in exactly the same spot, a foot one way or the other, for 50 plus years. Absolutely. And it's our complete solid home. This was home. And they undid the ropes and she floated out. It was incredibly simple. It was incredibly straightforward. It's not easy to get rid of a wooden boat on the River Thames now. There used to be that you could drag them out to the estuary somewhere and let them rot on a sandbank and nobody would be bothered. Nowadays you can't do that. You can't tow it down the river, so we couldn't tow it down the river. We couldn't just, there's a danger of it sinking in front of the Houses of Parliament. It would be an expensive option if it sank.
This was a very important moment for me. 3 years of extreme uncertainty, 6 months of preparation and waiting had come to an end. The Leonard Piper was out in the river, clear of her mooring. She now belonged to Jim Dines, our contractor, not me. And her departure triggered the sale of the mooring she had left. Good news. Our huge boat seemed to have shrunk. She looked like a big rowing boat, vulnerable and alone. Last week I was feeling quite overwhelmed and I was thinking, yeah, breaking her is going to be terrible. Is it going to hurt? Well, it's going to hurt me, but it'll be terrible for her to be torn apart. admittedly, she's falling apart, so it makes it easier. I mean, that's the rationale. She is falling apart, therefore they're going to be helping her fall more completely apart. That she's been very good to me. This boat's been very good to me, and I've been very good to her. But it comes to an end.